The courtroom felt like a held breath, fragile, ready to shatter at any sound. For 17 days, the nation had watched the trial of a man who swore he was innocent, a man whose alibi seemed bulletproof. But there was one person who could crack it wide open, a 3-year-old girl who hadn't spoken a single word since the night her mother nearly died. Judge Eleanor Whitmore adjusted her glasses and glanced at the small wooden witness chair. Empty. Waiting. Behind her, the gallery was packed, reporters with pens poised, family members clutching tissues, cameras filming from behind soundproof glass. The defense attorney, a sharp-suited man named Victor Brennan, had already submitted a motion to dismiss. Your Honor, he'd argued that morning, a child of 3 cannot be considered a competent witness. She hasn't uttered a sound in months. This is a waste of the court's time. But the prosecution had insisted. Assistant District Attorney Rachel Torres believed that silence didn't mean absence of truth. She believed in something else too, something the defense had mocked relentlessly. She believed in a dog. The heavy oak doors at the back of the courtroom groaned open. Every head turned in unison. A tiny figure appeared in the doorway, her silhouette backlit by the harsh hallway fluorescence. She wore a soft pink sweater that hung past her wrists and clutched a worn, plush bunny against her chest. Its fur matted from countless nights of being held too tight. Her blonde hair framed a face that looked far older than 3 years old, eyes that had seen things no child should ever witness. Sophie Carter. Beside her, moving with quiet grace, was Atlas, a massive German shepherd in a black tactical vest. His dark eyes swept the room with calm authority, ears alert but posture relaxed. Officer Daniel Cross walked behind them both, his hand resting gently on the leash. Though Atlas didn't need guiding, the dog knew exactly where he was going. Sophie stopped just inside the doorway. Her small chest rose and fell rapidly. Her fingers tightened around the bunny's torn ear. She scanned the unfamiliar faces, the towering judge's bench, the jury box filled with strangers, the man sitting at the defense table who wouldn't stop staring at her. Then her eyes found Atlas. The dog turned his head toward her, as if sensing the weight of her fear. Without a word from Officer Cross, Atlas sat, perfectly still, patient. Sophie released the hand of her foster mother and took one hesitant step forward. Then another. The courtroom seemed to collectively lean in, afraid to breathe, afraid to break whatever fragile spell was forming. She reached Atlas and dropped to her knees beside him. Her small hands found his fur, fingers disappearing into the thick coat around his neck. She pressed her face against him, and for the first time in weeks, her shoulders began to shake. The judge leaned forward slightly. The prosecutor gripped the edge of her table. Even the defense attorney, who had been reviewing his notes, stopped moving entirely. Then it happened. Sophie pulled back just enough to look into Atlas's eyes. Her lips moved, barely a whisper, but in the absolute silence of that courtroom, it carried like thunder. Atlas knows! Gas rippled through the gallery like wind through tall grass. A juror in the back row covered her mouth. One of the reporters dropped his pen. Victor Brennan shot to his feet. Objection! Your Honor, this is... Judge Whitmore raised her hand sharply. Mr. Brennan, sit down. Your Honor, the child is clearly being... I said sit. Down. The judge's tone left no room for argument. Brennan slowly lowered himself back into his chair, but his jaw was clenched tight, his knuckles white against the table. Rachel Torres stood slowly, her heart hammering so hard she was certain the entire room could hear it. She had prepared for weeks. She had reviewed child psychology reports, consulted with trauma specialists, met with Officer Cross and Atlas a dozen times. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared her for this moment. She approached the witness stand carefully, kneeling beside Sophie so their eyes were level. Atlas remained seated, his body a solid wall of comfort between Sophie and the rest of the room. Sophie, Rachel said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, do you know where you are today? Sophie didn't answer. She kept one hand buried in Atlas's fur, her fingers moving rhythmically through the thick coat like she was counting invisible beads. Rachel waited. She had been warned by Dr. Sarah Chen, the child psychologist, that patience would be everything. Don't rush her, don't push. Let her come to you in her own time. After what felt like an eternity, Sophie leaned over and pressed her mouth close to Atlas's ear. Her lips moved silently, speaking words only the dog could hear. Then she looked up at Rachel. "He knows about the monster," Sophie whispered. The courtroom seemed to tilt. Rachel felt the ground shift beneath her knees. "Who knows, sweetheart?" Sophie's small hand patted Atlas's head twice. "Atlas, he knows what the monster did." Rachel glanced toward Judge Whitmore, who gave the slightest nod to continue. "Can you tell us what Atlas knows?" Sophie's eyes dropped to her lap. Her fingers found the pocket of her pink sweater and pulled out something crumpled and small. A piece of paper folded so many times it had become soft as fabric. She unfolded it carefully and handed it to Rachel. It was a drawing, done in crayons. Crude, childlike, but unmistakable. A stick figure lying on the ground surrounded by red scribbles. Another figure standing over it, tall, angular, with dark lines for arms. And in the corner, hiding under a table drawn in blue, a tiny figure with yellow hair. Sophie pointed to the standing figure. "That's the loud man," she said, her voice stronger now, more certain. "He made Mommy stop talking." Rachel held the drawing with trembling hands. She glanced at the jury. Several of them were wiping their eyes. One man in the front row had his hand pressed flat against his chest. "Sophie," Rachel said gently, "can you tell us anything else about the loud man?" Sophie looked across the courtroom. Her gaze swept slowly over the rows of people, the lawyers, the bailiff, the court reporter. Then her eyes stopped. Not on the defendant, on someone sitting 3 rows behind him, a man in a charcoal suit, clean-shaven, calm expression, hands folded neatly in his lap, and around his neck, a red tie. Sophie's small hand rose slowly. Her finger extended, trembling, pointing directly at him. "That one," she whispered. "He has the angry voice." The courtroom erupted. People stood. Voices overlapped. The man in the red tie remained perfectly still, his face a mask of composure. But his eyes flickered with something dark and cold. Victor Brennan was on his feet again, shouting objections. Judge Whitmore slammed her gavel 3 times. "Order! Order in this court!" But Rachel Torres wasn't listening to any of it. She was watching Sophie, who had turned back to Atlas and buried her face in his fur once more, her small body shaking with silent sobs. And she was watching Detective Marcus Hale in the back of the room, already moving toward the man in the red tie with 2 uniformed officers at his side. Because in that single moment, a 3-year-old girl and a German shepherd had just done what weeks of investigation couldn't. They had found the monster. Detective Marcus Hale had seen worse crime scenes. 23 years on the force meant he'd walked through horrors that would break most people. But standing in the doorway of that small kitchen on Maple Street, watching the EMTs load an unconscious woman onto a stretcher, he felt something shift in his chest, something that hadn't moved in a very long time. The apartment was modest, clean before tonight. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator with alphabet magnets, holding them in place. A half-eaten bowl of macaroni sat on the counter next to a sippy cup decorated with cartoon elephants. The normality of it all made what happened here feel even more obscene. The kitchen table lay on its side. 2 legs snapped clean off. Splinters littered the linoleum floor. A broken plate, scattered crayons, a single child's shoe near the baseboard, pink with glitter stars. Blood spatter arced across the lower cabinets in a pattern that told Marcus exactly what kind of force had been used. He'd need forensics to confirm it, but his gut already knew. This wasn't a fall. This wasn't an accident. This was rage. Officer Amy Chen stood near the doorway, her face pale, radio crackling softly on her shoulder. She'd been first on scene. A neighbor had called about screaming, then silence. "Detective," she said quietly, her voice tight, "we still haven't found the child." Marcus's head snapped up. "What do you mean you haven't found her?" "The neighbor said there's a little girl, 3 years old, Sophie Carter, but she's not in her bedroom, not in the bathroom. We've checked every room twice." His pulse quickened. Marcus moved through the apartment again, eyes scanning with renewed urgency. The living room was untouched. The bathroom door hung open, lights still on, a rubber duck sitting on the edge of the tub. The mother's bedroom showed signs of a struggle, sheets pulled off the bed, A lamp knocked over, but the child's room looked like a magazine photo. Stuffed animals arranged neatly on the bed, books on a low shelf, a nightlight shaped like a crescent moon casting soft yellow across the walls. Too perfect, too undisturbed. Marcus knelt slowly beside the small bed and lifted the edge of the comforter. Nothing. He stood in turn, surveying the room from a different angle. A closet with sliding doors, a toy chest painted white, a small bookshelf. He walked to the closet and slid it open. Dresses on tiny hangers, shoes lined up below. No child. Then he heard it, the softest sound, almost like breathing, but shallower, frightened. Marcus dropped to his knees and looked under the bed. In the far corner, pressed against the wall where shadows pooled deepest, a small bundle of blankets trembled. "Sophie?" he whispered. The trembling stopped. The breathing stopped. Everything stopped. Marcus lowered himself onto his stomach, ignoring the protest from his back, and slowly reached one hand under the bed. "Sophie, my name is Marcus. I'm a police officer. I'm here to help you." Nothing. He could see her now, just barely. A sliver of blonde hair, the edge of a pink sleeve. She had pulled the blanket over herself so completely that she'd become invisible in the darkness. "Sophie, your mom is going to be okay. The ambulance is taking her to the hospital right now, but I need you to come out so I can make sure you're not hurt. Can you do that for me?" The blanket shifted slightly. A tiny hand emerged, fingers curled into a fist. Marcus extended his palm flat. "I promise you're safe now. Whatever happened, it's over. I won't let anyone hurt you." Slowly, inch by inch, the blanket began to move. A face appeared, pale, streaked with tears. Eyes so wide they looked almost hollow. Sophie Carter stared at him, with a gaze that had aged a lifetime in a single night. She crawled forward on her hands and knees, dragging the blanket behind her like a cape. And when she emerged from under the bed, Marcus saw the plush bunny clutched against her chest, its ear torn, its fur matted with something dark that might have been blood or dirt or both. He gathered her up gently and stood. She weighed almost nothing. Her small body was rigid, locked in place by terror. "It's okay," he whispered, carrying her out of the room, away from the kitchen, away from the broken table and the blood. "You're safe now." But as they passed through the living room, Sophie turned her head and looked back toward the kitchen. Her mouth opened as if to speak. No sound came out. And Marcus realized with a cold, sinking certainty that whatever Sophie had seen tonight had stolen something from her that might never come back. Her voice. Officer Daniel Cross had worked with Atlas for 4 years, and in that time, he'd learned to read the dog better than most people read books. The slight tilt of his head meant curiosity. The way his ears pricked forward signaled alertness. The soft exhale through his nose was contentment. But as they pulled up to the modest 2-story foster home on Elmwood Avenue, Atlas did something Daniel had never seen before. The dog whined, soft and low, almost mournful, like he already knew what waited inside. "Easy, boy," Daniel murmured, shutting off the engine. He reached over and scratched behind Atlas's ears. "We're here to help." The front door opened before they reached the porch. Margaret Hayes stood in the doorway, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, her face etched with the kind of tired compassion that came from decades of fostering broken children. "Officer Cross?" "Yes, ma'am. Thank you for agreeing to this." Margaret glanced down at Atlas, then back at Daniel. "I've had therapy animals here before. Dogs, cats, even a rabbit once. But I have to tell you, that little girl hasn't responded to anything. Not toys, not books, not even ice cream." Her voice dropped. "She just sits there, staring." Daniel nodded. He'd read the reports. Selective mutism, the psychologist called it, though Daniel suspected it went deeper than selection. Sophie Carter hadn't chosen silence. Silence had chosen her. "Where is she now?" "Upstairs, second room on the left. I'll warn you, she doesn't like being approached too quickly." Daniel climbed the stairs with Atlas at his side, the dog's claws clicking softly against the hardwood. The hallway smelled like lavender and old books. Framed photos of children lined the walls. Margaret's fostered kids over the years. smiling faces that had found temporary refuge here. The door to Sophie's room stood slightly ajar. Daniel knocked gently. "Sophie, my name is Officer Cross. I brought someone I'd like you to meet." No response. He pushed the door open slowly. The room was painted pale yellow with white curtains that filtered afternoon sunlight into soft gold. A small bed sat against one wall, neatly made. A shelf of stuffed animals that clearly hadn't been touched. And in the corner, sitting on the floor with her back pressed against the wall, was Sophie Carter. She wore the same pink sweater from the hospital, now laundered but still too big for her tiny frame. The plush bunny sat in her lap, its torn ear dangling. Her eyes were fixed on some invisible point in the middle distance, seeing nothing and everything all at once. Daniel's chest tightened. He'd seen trauma before, but something about the absolute stillness of this child made him want to gather her up and promise her the world would never hurt her again. Instead, he knelt slowly about 6 feet away. "Sophie, this is Atlas. He's a very special dog. He helps people who are scared or sad or hurting. Would it be okay if he came closer?" Sophie didn't move, didn't blink. Daniel glanced at Atlas and gave the softest hand signal, the one that meant approach slowly, assess gently. Atlas understood immediately. He moved forward with the careful grace of something far more intelligent than just instinct. His body stayed low, non-threatening. His tail didn't wag but hung naturally behind him. He stopped 3 feet from Sophie and sat, waiting. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Sophie's eyes shifted, not toward Daniel, toward Atlas. The dog tilted his head, his dark eyes meeting hers with something that looked impossibly like understanding. Sophie's fingers twitched against the bunny's matted fur. Atlas took one step closer, then another. He lowered himself slowly until he was lying down completely, his chin resting on his paws, his body positioned between Sophie and the rest of the room like a living shield. And then, so slowly Daniel almost missed it, Sophie's hand reached out. Her small fingers touched the top of Atlas's head. The dog didn't move, didn't react, just breathed steadily, calmly, his presence a quiet promise that she was safe. Sophie's fingers slid down to Atlas's ear, then along his neck. She leaned forward just an inch, then another. Her face crumpled suddenly, and tears spilled down her cheeks. The first tears Daniel had been told she'd shed since the night her world shattered. She collapsed forward, burying her face in Atlas's fur, her small body shaking with silent sobs. Atlas didn't move. He simply lay there, absorbing her grief, her terror, her wordless pain. His eyes found Daniel's across the room, and in them was something ancient and knowing. This child needed him, and he would not fail her. Daniel watched as Sophie's fingers tangled in Atlas's coat, gripping tight like she was afraid he might disappear. And for the first time since that horrible night, he saw something flicker in her expression. Not quite hope, not yet, but something close, the first spark of life returning to eyes that had gone dark. Will Sophie find her voice? Subscribe and hit the bell to see the miracle unfold. The morning of the trial arrived with gray skies and a cold wind that rattled the courthouse windows. Inside, the hallways buzzed with nervous energy, reporters checking camera equipment, family members clutching prayer cards, lawyers reviewing last-minute notes in whispered conferences. Rachel Torres stood outside courtroom 4B, smoothing down her navy suit jacket for the third time in as many minutes. She'd prosecuted murder cases, organized crime rings, corruption scandals that made headlines for months, but none of them had made her hands shake like this. Detective Marcus Hale approached from down the hall, his face grim. The defense just filed another motion to exclude Sophie's testimony. Judge Whitmore denied it, but Brennan's not going down easy. He never does. Rachel glanced at her watch. 9:45. 15 minutes until they were called in. Is she here? Marcus nodded toward the witness waiting room. Cross brought her in through the back entrance. Less cameras. The foster mother's with her. Rachel took a breath and headed for the door, but Marcus caught her arm gently. Rachel, she's terrified. I've never seen a kid look so small. I know. If this goes wrong, it won't. Rachel's voice was firmer than she felt. Atlas will be with her. That dog is the only thing keeping her together. Inside the waiting room, Sophie sat on Margaret's lap, her face buried against the woman's shoulder. The pink sweater had been replaced with a pale blue dress, dotted with white polka dots, a small concession to formality that somehow made her look even more fragile. The plush bunny dangled from one hand, its torn ear swaying with each shallow breath Sophie took. Atlas lay at their feet, his dark eyes fixed on the door, alert but calm. Officer Daniel Cross stood nearby, his hand resting on the dog's head in a gesture that seemed to comfort him as much as the animal. Sophie, Rachel said softly, kneeling down. It's almost time. Remember what we talked about? You'll walk into the room, and Atlas will be right beside you the whole time. You don't have to say anything you don't want to say. Sophie's fingers tightened around the bunny. She didn't look up. I promise you're safe. Judge Whitmore is very kind, and she won't let anyone be mean to you. Okay? A barely perceptible nod. Rachel met Daniel's eyes. He gave a slight nod back, ready as they'd ever be. The bailiff appeared in the doorway. Ms. Torres? We're ready for you. The walk down the hallway felt like marching towards something inevitable and terrible. Margaret carried Sophie, who kept her face hidden, while Daniel walked beside them with Atlas on a short leash. Rachel led the way, her heels clicking against marble floors that echoed like gunshots. The courtroom doors loomed ahead, heavy oak with brass handles worn smooth from decades of hands pushing through. Rachel opened them, and the world seemed to inhale. Every seat was filled. The jury box, the gallery, even the standing room in the back was packed shoulder to shoulder. Camera operators adjusted their lenses behind the glass partition. Sketch artists poised pencils over paper. And at the defense table, Victor Brennan sat with his client, a thin man in his 30s named Derek Walsh, whose eyes tracked Sophie the moment she appeared. Judge Eleanor Whitmore looked up from her bench, her expression unreadable behind wire-rimmed glasses. Ms. Torres, she said evenly, please bring your witness forward. Margaret set Sophie down gently, and the little girl's legs wobbled as her feet touched the ground. Daniel gave Atlas a soft command, and the dog immediately moved to Sophie's side, pressing his body against her leg. Together, they walked down the center aisle. The gallery held its collective breath. No one moved. No one whispered. The only sound was the soft padding of Atlas's paws and the faint rustle of Sophie's dress. Victor Brennan stood slowly, his face twisted into something between amusement and contempt. Your Honor, he said, his voice dripping with disdain, I must object to this theatrical display. A therapy animal? In a court of law? He gestured toward Atlas with a dismissive wave. This is a circus, not a trial. The defense moves to... Mr. Brennan, Judge Whitmore's voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. Your objection is noted and overruled. The court has already approved the use of a support animal for this witness. Sit down. Brennan's jaw clenched, but he lowered himself back into his chair, shooting a glance at his client that promised they weren't done fighting. Sophie reached the witness stand and stopped. The chair looked enormous compared to her tiny frame. She clutched the bunny tighter, her eyes wide and glassy. Daniel knelt beside her. You're doing great, Sophie. Atlas is going to sit right here beside you. He won't leave, I promise. Atlas moved into position, settling beside the witness chair with perfect discipline. His head turned toward Sophie, and she reached out immediately, her small hand finding his fur. The bailiff approached with a booster seat and placed it on the chair. Margaret helped Sophie climb up, adjusting her dress, whispering something soft and reassuring. Judge Whitmore leaned forward, her voice gentle. Sophie, my name is Judge Whitmore. You're very brave for being here today. Do you understand where you are? Sophie stared at her lap. Her fingers moved rhythmically through Atlas's fur. No response. Rachel stood slowly. Your Honor, if I may. The judge nodded. Rachel approached, kneeling beside Sophie, just as she had at the foster home. Sophie, remember what Atlas told you about being brave? Sophie's eyes lifted slightly, not toward Rachel, toward the dog. And in that moment, something shifted in the courtroom. A collective understanding, that they weren't about to witness testimony. They were about to witness a miracle. Rachel stayed kneeling beside the witness stand, her eyes level with Sophie's. The courtroom felt suspended in time, every person leaning forward imperceptibly, afraid to break whatever fragile spell was forming. "Sophie," Rachel said softly, "can you tell Atlas what happened the night your mommy got hurt?" Sophie's fingers stilled in Atlas's fur. Her small chest rose and fell rapidly, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. For a moment, Rachel thought she'd pushed too hard, too fast. The child's face had gone pale, her eyes distant. Then Sophie leaned down, her blonde hair falling like a curtain around her face, and pressed her mouth close to Atlas's ear. The courtroom strained to hear. Not a single person dared breathe. Sophie's lips moved, forming words so quiet they seemed more like thoughts than sounds. Atlas's ear twitched, responding to the soft exhale of her voice. His dark eyes stayed fixed on her face, patient and steady. She pulled back slightly, looked at Atlas as if waiting for confirmation, then leaned in again. This time, her voice carried just far enough for Rachel to catch fragments. "The loud man." He was so angry. Rachel's heart hammered against her ribs. She glanced at Judge Whitmore, who gave the slightest nod to continue. "Sophie," Rachel whispered, "can you tell me what you told Atlas? It's okay. We're all listening." Sophie shook her head violently, her fingers gripping Atlas's fur so tight her knuckles went white. But then the dog shifted, moving his head to rest it gently on the edge of the witness chair, right against Sophie's leg. The gesture seemed to anchor her. She looked down at him, and something in her expression cracked open. Tears spilled down her cheeks, silent and steady. "The loud man came in," she whispered, her voice barely audible, but carrying through the absolute stillness of the room. "Mommy said no." She said no lots of times. In the jury box, a woman in the front row pressed her hand to her mouth. A man beside her wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Rachel remained perfectly still, afraid that any movement might shatter this moment. "What happened then, Sophie?" He pushed her. Sophie's voice broke, becoming even smaller. "She fell and hit the table. The table broke, like in my picture." "The picture you drew?" Sophie nodded. Her hand moved to her dress pocket, pulling out the same crumpled drawing she'd shown before. The stick figures, the broken table, the red scribbles. "Can you show Atlas the picture?" Rachel asked gently. Sophie unfolded it with trembling fingers and held it in front of the dog's face. "See, Atlas? That's Mommy. She's on the floor and she won't wake up." Her voice rose slightly, gaining strength from speaking to the dog instead of the room full of strangers. "And that's me. I hide it under the table that wasn't broken yet. I was so quiet. So quiet." Atlas's tail moved once, a soft thump against the floor. His eyes never left Sophie's face. "I wanted to help Mommy, but the loud man was still there. He was yelling and yelling. His voice was so mean." Sophie's breath hitched, her small body shaking. "He said bad words. Really bad words that Mommy says I can't say ever." Victor Brennan shifted in his seat, his face carefully neutral. But Rachel saw the slight tension in his jaw. "Sophie," Rachel said, choosing her words carefully, "can you tell Atlas what the loud man looked like?" Sophie buried her face in Atlas's neck, her words muffled against his fur. "I don't want to. I know, sweetheart. I know you're scared. But Atlas is right here. He's protecting you. No one can hurt you while he's here." The dog seemed to understand. He pressed closer to Sophie, his solid presence a wall between her and the rest of the world. Sophie lifted her head slowly. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face blotchy with tears. But when she spoke again, her voice was clearer. "He was big, bigger than Mommy, and his hands..." She looked down at her own small hands. "His hands were so big. They were on Mommy's neck, and she made a sound, like when I can't breathe good." A juror in the back row openly sobbed. The sketch artist had stopped drawing, her pencil frozen mid-stroke. "And when he left," Sophie continued, her voice dropping to barely a whisper again, "Mommy didn't move no more. She just laid there. The floor got all red like paint, but it wasn't paint. It was sticky." She leaned into Atlas again. And this time when she spoke, her words were directed only to him, but the microphone caught them anyway. I was so scared, Atlas. I wanted Mommy to wake up. I said, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy," but only in my head because the loud man said if I made noise, he'd come back. So I stopped talking. I stopped talking forever and ever so he wouldn't come back. Rachel felt tears burning behind her eyes. Across the courtroom, she saw Detective Marcus Hale's hand pressed flat against his chest, his own eyes glistening. Judge Whitmore cleared her throat softly. "Ms. Torres, I think we should take a brief recess." "No." Sophie's voice rang out, stronger than anyone had heard it. She sat up straighter, her hand still in Atlas's fur. "I'm not done. Atlas needs to know all of it." The judge paused, then nodded slowly. "All right, Sophie, take your time." Sophie looked directly at the jury for the first time. "The loud man," she said, each word deliberate and clear, "made my mommy broken. And I remember his voice. I remember it every night when I can't sleep." Her eyes scanned the courtroom, moving past the defense table, past the gallery, searching. "Because," she whispered, "he sounds just like someone in this room." Detective Marcus Hale sat in his car outside the Foster home long after the sun had set, the manila folder on his passenger seat growing heavier with each passing minute. Inside were Sophie's therapy session notes, pages and pages of observations from Dr. Sarah Chen, documenting a child who wouldn't speak, wouldn't engage, wouldn't do anything except draw the same nightmare over and over again. But something had been bothering Marcus since Sophie's testimony earlier that day. The way she'd said the monster's voice sounded like someone in the courtroom. Not the defendant, someone else. The precision of that statement from a 3-year-old haunted him. He pulled out his phone and dialed Dr. Chen's number. She answered on the second ring. "Detective Hale, I watched the trial coverage. That poor child. Dr. Chen, I need to ask you something. During your sessions with Sophie, did she ever say anything? Even once? Anything at all?" A pause. "Not to me, but..." Marcus leaned forward. "But what?" "There was one session about 2 weeks ago. I brought Atlas in as part of the therapy protocol. Sophie was having a particularly difficult day. Nightmares the night before, wouldn't eat breakfast. I left the room briefly to take a phone call, and when I came back, she was curled up with Atlas whispering to him. What did she say? I don't know. By the time I got close enough, she'd stopped. But detective, I record all my sessions for documentation purposes. Audio only. It's standard procedure for child trauma cases." Marcus's pulse quickened. "Do you still have that recording? It should be in my office files. Give me 20 minutes. Marcus drove to Dr. Chen's office in 15, his mind racing through possibilities. Dr. Chen met him at the door, her gray cardigan wrapped tight against the evening chill, a small digital recorder in her hand. "I pulled the session from October 18th, she said, leading him inside. "The timestamp where I stepped out is around the 32-minute mark. I've never listened to this part closely. I assumed it was just the ambient sound of her being with the dog." She set the recorder on her desk and pressed play. For the first few minutes, there was only the sound of Dr. Chen's voice asking gentle questions, met with silence. Papers shuffling, a clock ticking. Then Dr. Chen's voice again. "Sophie, I'll be right back. Atlas will stay with you, okay?" Footsteps, a door closing softly. Then nothing but breathing and the slight rustle of fabric. Marcus was about to ask if there was anything else when he heard it. So faint he almost missed it. A child's voice barely above a whisper. "Atlas?" Dr. Chen's hand flew to her mouth. The recording continued. Sophie's voice was clearer now, speaking in that private tone children use when they think no one else is listening. "Atlas, I have to tell you something, but you can't tell the mean people, okay? Only the nice police lady." A pause, the sound of the dog shifting position. "The monster, he has a new face now." Marcus felt ice slide down his spine. He looked different when he came to Mommy's house. But I know it's him. I know his voice. Mommy knew too. She said his name and she was scared. She said, "What are you doing here?" And he got so mad. Sophie's voice dropped even lower, and Marcus had to turn up the volume to catch the words. He said he was there to fix things, but he didn't fix things. He broke everything. He broke Mommy and the table and my whole world. A small sob, then a shaky breath. Atlas, the monster wears a tie now, a red tie, like the man who came to see Derek, the man who told Derek what to say. I saw him through the window when I was hiding in Margaret's bushes. He came to the foster home and talked to Margaret, but I hid it. Marcus stopped the recording. When was this session? Dr. Chen checked her notes. October 18th. That was 3 days before Derek Walsh's defense attorney filed his motion to suppress evidence. And who's Derek Walsh's attorney? Victor Brennan. Dr. Chen's face had gone pale. But Detective, Brennan's been representing Walsh since the beginning. He couldn't have been at the crime scene. He didn't even take the case until after the arrest. Marcus was already pulling up his phone, scrolling through case files. No, but Brennan has a law partner, someone who handles their investigative work, someone who interviews witnesses before trial. He found the name. His blood ran cold. James Thornton. He's listed as a consultant on the case, and according to these billing records, Thornton visited Walsh in jail 17 times. He also interviewed the neighbors, reviewed the crime scene photos, and Marcus's throat tightened. He had access to Sophie's mother's apartment 3 days before the attack. The landlord's statement says a lawyer named Jim came by asking questions about Amy Carter's boyfriend. Dr. Chen pressed play on the recorder again. Sophie's voice filled the room. He thought I couldn't see him, but I saw his face when he hurt Mommy. And now he comes to the courtroom and sits in the back and watches me, and I'm so scared he knows I remember. The recording went quiet except for the sound of Sophie crying into Atlas's fur. Then, barely audible, one final sentence. Atlas, when I pointed at Derek, I was really pointing at the man behind him. But nobody saw. Nobody saw except you. Marcus grabbed the recorder and stood. I need this as evidence. And I need to speak to Judge Whitmore tonight. Detective, what does this mean? Marcus was already heading for the door. His mind connecting pieces that should have been obvious from the start. The too perfect alibi for Walsh. The way Brennan had pushed so hard to exclude Sophie's testimony. The man in the red tie sitting 3 rows behind the defendant, watching everything with cold, calculating eyes. It means, Marcus said, we've been prosecuting the wrong man, and the real monster has been in that courtroom all along. The mystery deepens. Keep watching to see who the monster really is. The courtroom felt different the next morning. Word had spread through the legal community that something unexpected was unfolding in the Carter case. Something that had Judge Whitmore calling an emergency evening session with both counsel and ordering additional security. Rachel Torres arrived early, her briefcase heavier than usual. Inside were 17 drawings, each one carefully preserved in clear plastic sleeves, each one a window into a child's shattered world. She'd spent half the night arranging them in chronological order, watching Sophie's story unfold in crayon and colored pencil. The gallery filled quickly. Reporters sensed blood in the water. Detective Marcus Hale sat in the front row, his jaw set, eyes fixed on the man in the red tie who'd taken his usual seat 3 rows behind the defense table. James Thornton looked calm as ever, his hands folded in his lap, his expression one of mild interest. But Rachel noticed something she hadn't before. The way his eyes tracked every movement near the evidence table, the slight tension in his shoulders. He knew something was coming. Judge Whitmore entered, and the room rose. Please be seated, Ms. Torres. I understand you have additional evidence to present? Yes, Your Honor. With the court's permission, I'd like to present a series of drawings created by Sophie Carter over the past 6 weeks during her therapy sessions with Dr. Sarah Chen. Victor Brennan stood immediately. Your Honor, we've already seen the child's crude stick figure drawings. How many times must we? Mr. Brennan, Judge Whitmore's tone could have frozen fire. Sit down and let Ms. Torres present her evidence. You'll have your chance to object. Rachel approached the jury box with the first drawing. This is the image Sophie created the day after the attack. As you can see, it shows the basic scene, a figure on the ground, another figure standing, and a small figure hiding under furniture. She held it up. The jury leaned forward, studying the red scribbles, the harsh black lines of the standing figure. Simple as Mr. Brennan suggests, A child's interpretation of trauma. Rachel set it aside and picked up the second drawing. But this is from 1 week later. Notice anything different? A juror in the front row, a middle-aged woman named Patricia Chen, squinted at the image. The standing figure has something around its neck. Exactly. Rachel pointed to a rectangle of red crayon at the figure's throat. Sophie added this detail in her second session. When Dr. Chen asked what it was, Sophie wouldn't answer. She just kept coloring it red, over and over until the crayon broke. She moved to the third drawing. 1 week after that, the detail becomes clearer. The red rectangle has a knot. It's a tie. Murmuring rippled through the gallery. Rachel watched James Thornton from the corner of her eye. His hands had tightened almost imperceptibly. Now here's what's interesting. Rachel pulled out the evidence photos from Derek Walsh's arrest. When Mr. Walsh was taken into custody, he was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Officers inventoried his belongings. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, 1 jacket, no tie, not a single one. She let that sink in before continuing. Investigators searched his apartment. No ties in his closet, no ties in his car. His employer, a construction company, confirmed he'd never worn a tie to work in 3 years of employment. Victor Brennan shifted uncomfortably. Your Honor, the absence of a tie doesn't... I'm not finished, Mr. Brennan. Rachel's voice was steel wrapped in silk. She picked up another drawing, this one from 3 weeks ago. In this session, Sophie added more details. Look closely at the tie. She held it under the document camera, and the image projected onto the screen behind her. The jury gasped collectively. The tie had a pattern, diagonal stripes, red and gold. Sophie told Atlas, and only Atlas, that she remembered the tie because it reminded her of candy canes but wrong colors. Rachel pulled out her phone and brought up a photo. This morning, Detective Hale obtained security footage from the courthouse entrance. This image is from 2 days ago. The screen showed James Thornton walking through the metal detector, his briefcase in hand. Around his neck was a tie with diagonal red and gold stripes. The courtroom erupted. Order! Judge Whitmore's gavel cracked like thunder. Order in this court! But Rachel wasn't done. She pulled out the final drawing, the one Sophie had created just yesterday after her testimony. This one was different from all the others. More detailed, more precise. In it, 3 figures stood in a courtroom. A small one by a dog, a woman kneeling beside them, and in the background, partially hidden behind other stick figures, a man with a red and gold striped tie. Above his head, in shaky child's handwriting, were 3 letters. J-I-M. Sophie drew this after she testified, Rachel said quietly. She told Dr. Chen that she needed Atlas to understand who the real monster was, because when she pointed in the courtroom, she wasn't pointing at Derek Walsh. Rachel turned and looked directly at James Thornton. She was pointing at the man who'd been watching her from the back of the room, the man who'd been at her mother's apartment 3 days before the attack. The man who wore a red and gold tie. James Thornton's face had gone white. His hands gripped the bench in front of him. Your Honor, Rachel said, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around her. The prosecution moves to amend the charges. Derek Walsh may have been present that night, but he wasn't alone. And the person who actually attacked Amy Carter is sitting in this courtroom right now. Judge Whitmore's gavel came down again, but her eyes were on James Thornton, who had slowly risen from his seat. Mr. Thornton, the judge said, her voice cutting through the noise, I suggest you remain seated. Bailiff, please secure that section of the gallery. 2 officers moved immediately toward Thornton, who stood frozen, his face a mask of disbelief and fury. And in the witness box, Sophie Carter pressed her face into Atlas's fur and whispered words only the dog could hear. I told you, Atlas. I told you he was the monster. Judge Whitmore called a 15-minute recess after the drawings were presented, but no one left the courtroom. The air crackled with electricity, with the collective sense that something monumental was about to break wide open. James Thornton remained in his seat, flanked now by 2 bailiffs, his face a carefully controlled mask that couldn't quite hide the rage burning behind his eyes. Rachel Torres stood at the prosecution table, her hands gripping the edge so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Detective Marcus Hale leaned close and whispered, Are you sure about this? putting her back on the stand. "She wants to do it," Rachel said quietly. She told Dr. Chen this morning that Atlas said she had to be brave one more time, that the monster needed to hear her voice. Marcus glanced toward the witness box where Sophie sat with Atlas, her small hand buried in his fur, her eyes fixed on something in the middle distance. "That kid has more courage than most adults I know." Judge Whitmore returned, her black robes settling around her like wings. "Ms. Torres, do you wish to continue?" "Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to recall Sophie Carter to the stand." Victor Brennan shot to his feet. "Your Honor, this child has already testified. The prosecution is clearly trying to—" "Mr. Brennan," the judge's voice was ice. "Your client's case may have just imploded, and you're worried about protocol? Overruled. The witness may continue." Sophie was already in the witness box, had never left it. Rachel approached slowly, kneeling beside her as she'd done before. "Sophie, I know you've been very brave today, but I need to ask you something important. Can you do that for me?" Sophie looked down at Atlas, who turned his head to meet her gaze. Some unspoken communication passed between them, and Sophie nodded. "When the bad thing happened at your house, you said you heard a bang. Do you remember that?" Sophie's fingers tightened in Atlas's fur. "Yes. Can you tell us what made the bang?" "The loud man." Sophie's voice was barely above a whisper. "He made Mommy fall. She hit the table. That was the first bang. Then—" her voice broke. "Then there was another bang. A scary bang that made my ears hurt." Rachel's heart hammered. "What kind of bang was it, Sophie?" "Like fireworks, but inside. And Mommy screamed, and then she stopped making sounds." A juror gasped. Rachel felt the room tilt slightly. "Sophie, did you see what made that bang?" Sophie nodded, tears streaming down her face. The loud man had something in his hand, something black and shiny. He pointed it at Mommy. "A gun?" "I don't know that word." Sophie pulled her hand from Atlas and held her fingers up, shaped like a child's play gun. "It looked like this, and it made the loud bang, and there was smoke, and Mommy fell down and didn't get up no more." The courtroom was absolutely silent. Rachel could hear her own heartbeat, could feel the weight of every eye in the room. "Sophie," she said gently, "the loud man who had the thing that made the bang, is he in this courtroom right now?" Sophie's eyes filled with fresh tears. She looked at Atlas again, seeking permission or courage or both. The dog shifted closer to her, pressing his solid warmth against her leg. Then Sophie lifted her head and looked out at the gallery. Her small arm rose slowly, trembling, her finger extending toward the back of the room. Not toward Derek Walsh at the defense table, not toward Victor Brennan, toward James Thornton, sitting 3 rows back, his face now drained of all color. "That one," Sophie said, her voice suddenly clear and strong, carrying to every corner of the courtroom. "The man with the red tie, he's the one who made the bang. He's the one who broke my mommy." James Thornton stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is insane. She's a child. She doesn't know what she's—" "Mr. Thornton, sit down," Judge Whitmore commanded. "I wasn't even there. I never—" He stopped, realizing too late what he'd just admitted, that he knew what "there" meant, that he understood exactly what he was being accused of. The bailiffs moved instantly, hands on Thornton's arms. He tried to pull away, his composure finally shattering completely. "She's lying. She's a stupid kid who doesn't understand what she saw." His voice rose to a shout. "It was Walsh. Walsh was the one who—" "Who what, Mr. Thornton?" Rachel stood, her voice cutting through his panic. "Who attacked Amy Carter? Because Derek Walsh was never charged with using a weapon. That detail was never made public. So how do you know there was a gun?" Thornton's mouth opened and closed. His eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal seeking escape. Sophie climbed down from the witness chair, Atlas beside her. She walked slowly toward Thornton, stopping 10 feet away, safely behind the barrier of the bailiffs. "You said you were Mommy's friend," Sophie said, her voice small but steady. "You said you came to help, but you hurt her. You hurt her so bad. And then you told Derek to say he did it. I heard you. I heard you talking outside when the police came. You said if Derek loved Mommy, he'd take the blame." Thornton lunged forward, but the bailiffs held him fast. You little... His voice, raised in fury, rang through the courtroom, and Sophie's eyes went wide with recognition. That voice, she whispered, backing into Atlas. That's the voice from that night. That's the loud man's voice. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for doors. Cameras flashed behind the glass partition. Judge Whitmore's gavel cracked again and again. But through it all, Sophie stood with Atlas, her small hand in his fur, watching as the monster was finally dragged away in handcuffs, still shouting denials that no one believed anymore. Rachel knelt beside Sophie and gathered her into her arms. You did it, sweetheart. You were so brave. It's over now. Sophie looked up at her with those eyes that had seen too much, survived too much. Is Mommy going to wake up now? Rachel's throat tightened. The doctors are taking very good care of her. And now that we caught the bad man, you're safe. You're finally safe. Sophie turned to Atlas and wrapped her arms around his neck. Thank you, she whispered into his fur. Thank you for helping me be brave. And for the first time since that horrible night, Sophie Carter smiled. The interrogation room at the precinct smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Detective Marcus Hale sat across from James Thornton, watching the man's carefully constructed world crumble piece by piece. Thornton's red and gold tie had been removed as evidence, leaving his collar open and wrinkled. His lawyer, a public defender who'd been assigned after Victor Brennan immediately withdrew from any association with the case, sat beside him looking exhausted. My client has nothing to say, the lawyer began, but Thornton cut him off. She couldn't have seen me. It was dark. The kid was under a table. Marcus leaned back, arms crossed. So you admit you were there. Thornton's face went white as he realized his mistake. His lawyer put a hand on his arm, but Thornton shook it off. I want a deal. I'll tell you everything, but I want a deal. Start talking, Marcus said. Then maybe we'll talk about deals. The story that emerged over the next 3 hours was uglier than Marcus had imagined. James Thornton had known Amy Carter for years. They dated briefly in college before she met Derek Walsh. When Amy tried to end their relationship with Derek and move on with her life, Thornton saw an opportunity. He'd convinced himself that she'd come back to him if Derek was out of the picture. But Amy had rejected him, told him she wasn't interested, that she never had been. The night of the attack, Thornton had gone to her apartment to talk. The conversation escalated. Amy tried to call the police. Thornton grabbed her phone, and when she fought back, he lost control. I didn't mean to hurt her that bad, Thornton said, his voice hollow. It just happened. And then Walsh showed up. He had a key, came to get some of his things. He saw what I'd done, saw Amy on the floor. So you threatened him, Marcus said flatly. I told him if he loved her, he'd take the blame. I had connections. I could make sure he got a good lawyer, make sure the case fell apart. All he had to do was keep quiet. Thornton laughed bitterly. The idiot actually agreed, thought he was protecting her somehow. Marcus felt sick. And the gun? I brought it in case she didn't listen. I didn't think... Thornton trailed off. The kid. I didn't know the kid was there until Walsh mentioned her. Said she was hiding somewhere. I looked, but I couldn't find her. Walsh swore she didn't see anything. But she did. Yeah. Thornton's hands clenched into fists. She did. Back at the courthouse, Rachel Torres stood before Judge Whitmore, presenting the evidence that had poured in over the past 72 hours. The forensic team had worked around the clock, and what they'd uncovered painted a damning picture. Your Honor, ballistics has confirmed that the bullet removed from Amy Carter's shoulder matches a 9mm handgun registered to James Thornton. The gun was recovered from his office safe yesterday evening. Rachel pulled up a series of financial documents on the courtroom display. Additionally, bank records show that Thornton made 3 cash deposits into Derek Walsh's commissary account over the past 2 months. $2,500 total. The deposits were made through an intermediary, but the paper trail leads directly back to Thornton's personal account. She clicked to the next slide. Phone records show 47 calls between Thornton and Walsh in the weeks following the attack. During Walsh's police interviews, he received texts from an unknown number, texts that investigators have now traced to a burner phone purchased by Thornton. The text contained specific instructions on what Walsh should say, what he should admit to, and what he should deny. Judge Whitmore studied the documents, her face grave. Ms. Torres, what is the prosecution recommending? The charges against Derek Walsh should be reduced to accessory after the fact and obstruction of justice. He was coerced and manipulated. The primary charges of attempted murder and assault with a deadly weapon should be filed against James Thornton. And what does Mr. Walsh say about all this? Rachel nodded toward the defense table, where Derek Walsh sat with his new attorney. The man looked 10 years older than his booking photo, his face hollow with guilt and relief in equal measure. Walsh stood slowly. Your Honor, I'd like to make a statement. The judge gestured for him to continue. I loved Amy, I still do. When I got to her apartment that night and saw what Thornton had done, his voice cracked. He had a gun. He told me Amy would die in prison if I didn't take the fall, that he'd make sure Sophie ended up in the system, that she'd never see her mother again. I was scared. I was stupid. I should have called the police right then, but I didn't. Tears streamed down Walsh's face. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. That little girl had to go through hell because I was too much of a coward to tell the truth. Amy almost died because of me. I'll accept whatever punishment the court gives me. I deserve it. Judge Whitmore was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice heavy with the weight of the case. Mr. Walsh, you made terrible choices, but I believe you were genuinely trying to protect someone you loved, however misguided that attempt was. You will be held accountable, but the court recognizes the coercion involved. Ms. Torres, proceed with the amended charges. Rachel gathered her papers, feeling the weight of the past week settling on her shoulders. Your Honor, there's one more thing. Sophie Carter would like to be present when Amy Carter wakes up. The doctors say it could be any day now. Granted, and Ms. Torres, the judge's expression softened almost imperceptibly. That child's courage saved her mother's life and exposed a conspiracy. Make sure she knows that. Rachel nodded, her throat tight with emotion. I will, Your Honor. As she left the courtroom, Rachel pulled out her phone and called the hospital. The nurse who answered sounded excited. Ms. Torres, I was just about to call you. Amy Carter opened her eyes 20 minutes ago. She's asking for her daughter. Rachel felt tears spring to her eyes. After everything, after all the darkness, there was finally light at the end. Justice wasn't just served, it was finally here. Justice is finally here. Subscribe now to support more stories of brave survivors. The park was alive with the sounds of late autumn, children laughing on swings, leaves crunching underfoot, the distant bark of dogs chasing frisbees. Sophie Carter sat on a bench beside her mother, her small hand clasped tightly in Amy's, as if afraid that letting go might make this all disappear like a dream. Amy Carter looked thinner than she had before the attack, her face bearing the faint scars of that terrible night. But her eyes were clear and bright as she watched her daughter, drinking in every detail as if memorizing her all over again. Tell me again about Atlas, Amy said softly, squeezing Sophie's hand. Sophie's face lit up in a way that made Amy's heart ache with gratitude. He's the bestest dog in the whole world, Mommy. He helped me be brave when I was so scared. He listened to all my secrets. And he's coming today? Officer Cross promised. He said Atlas wanted to see me. Sophie bounced slightly on the bench, her pink sneakers swinging. I made him a picture. Do you think he'll like it? Amy pulled her daughter close, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. I think he'll love it, baby. It had been a month since Amy woke up in the hospital to find her daughter's tear-streaked face hovering over her, whispering, Mommy, 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 like a prayer. A month of physical therapy, of learning to use her left arm again, of processing the horror of what James Thornton had done. But mostly it had been a month of healing, both for her body and for Sophie's shattered sense of safety. The psychologist said Sophie was making remarkable progress. The nightmares were becoming less frequent. She was talking more, laughing more, but she still asked about Atlas every single day. There, Sophie suddenly pointed across the park. There he is. Amy looked up to see Officer Daniel Cross walking toward them with Atlas at his side. The German shepherd's tail wagged steadily, and when he spotted Sophie, his pace quickened despite the leash. Sophie jumped off the bench and ran toward them, her small legs pumping as fast as they could carry her. Atlas met her halfway, sitting immediately when Daniel gave the command, but his whole body vibrated with barely contained excitement. "Atlas!" Sophie threw her arms around the dog's neck, burying her face in his fur. "I missed you so much!" Atlas's tail swept the ground like a metronome, and he turned his head to gently lick Sophie's cheek, making her giggle, a sound that Amy had worried she might never hear again. Daniel approached with a warm smile, extending his hand to Amy. "Mrs. Carter, it's good to see you up and about." "Ms. Carter," Amy corrected gently, then smiled. "And thank you for everything." Sophie talks about Atlas constantly, about you both. "Atlas did all the heavy lifting," Daniel said, watching Sophie show the dog her drawing, a picture of a girl, a dog, and a rainbow. "I just held the leash." Sophie looked up from where she was kneeling beside Atlas. "Mommy, can Atlas stay forever?" Amy's heart broke a little. "Sweetheart, Atlas has important work to do. He helps other children who are scared, just like he helped you." Sophie's face fell, but she nodded with a maturity beyond her years. "Because he's a hero." "Exactly," Daniel said, kneeling beside them. "But Sophie, Atlas will always remember you. You were one of the bravest kids he's ever worked with." "Really? Really?" Daniel pulled something from his pocket, a photograph of Atlas in his tactical vest, signed with a paw print. "He wanted you to have this, so you can remember him too." Sophie clutched the photo to her chest, then carefully tucked it into her jacket pocket before wrapping her arms around Atlas one more time. "Thank you for saving me and Mommy," she whispered into his fur. "Thank you for teaching me how to be brave." Atlas pressed his nose against her cheek, and in that moment, Amy understood something profound. This dog hadn't just helped Sophie testify, he'd given her back something that Thornton had stolen: her voice, her courage, her belief that the world could still be safe. They spent the next hour in the park, Sophie running and playing, while Atlas trotted beside her, patient and protective. Amy watched from the bench, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. As the sun began to set, casting long golden shadows across the grass, Daniel finally said they needed to head back. Sophie gave Atlas one last, long hug. "Will I see you again?" she asked, looking up at Daniel with hopeful eyes. "Maybe," Daniel said gently. "Atlas and I work all over the city, but I promise, if we're ever nearby, we'll come visit." Sophie nodded, satisfied with that answer. She watched as Daniel and Atlas walked back toward the parking lot, Atlas turning his head once to look back at her. Sophie waved, and the dog's tail wagged in response. Amy put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. "You okay, baby?" Sophie leaned into her mother's side, still watching Atlas disappear into the distance. "Yeah, Mommy, I'm okay now. Because Atlas showed me that even when scary things happen, there are good people who help, and good dogs." She smiled up at her mother. "And now I have you back." Amy pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her daughter's hair, feeling the steady rhythm of her heartbeat. "You're never losing me again, Sophie, I promise." They sat together on the bench as twilight settled over the park. Mother and daughter, survivors both. Somewhere across the city, James Thornton sat in a cell awaiting trial. Derek Walsh was serving his reduced sentence, writing letters of apology that Amy wasn't ready to read yet. But here, in this moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was Sophie's hand in hers, the way her daughter laughed when a squirrel ran past. The fact that they were together, safe, and whole. And somewhere out there, a German shepherd named Atlas was already helping another frightened child find their voice, just as he'd helped Sophie find hers. Sophie's story teaches us something profound about courage and healing. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is speak our truth, even when fear tries to silence us. Sophie found her voice not through force or pressure, but through the patient, unconditional presence of a loyal companion who made her feel safe enough to be heard. Her story reminds us that trauma doesn't have to define us, that children are far more resilient and perceptive than we often give them credit for. That justice, though sometimes slow, can prevail when we refuse to give up. And most importantly, that healing often comes through connection, whether with a trained therapy dog, a dedicated officer, a compassionate prosecutor, or a mother's unwavering love. In a world that can sometimes feel dark and overwhelming, Sophie and Atlas show us that there are still heroes among us. Some wear badges, some wear fur, and some are 3-year-old girls who find the courage to speak when everything inside them wants to stay silent. If Sophie's story moved you, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring true stories of courage, justice, and the unbreakable bonds between humans and the animals who saved them. Your support helps us share these important stories with the world. Comment brave below for Sophie and Atlas, and let us know what lesson from their story resonated most with you. Thank you for being part of this journey. Together, we can amplify the voices of survivors and celebrate the heroes, both human and canine, who stand beside them.